Singh visited and lectured in numerous countries. His latest books include The Other India View from Below, uh, Bhasha Samaj, Sanskriti. Then Sukumar Sen, a great chronicler of time, Antigone Ekavingshat, a Maithili play. It is it is an honor to have such a prolific scholar and literary visionary with us today. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Professor Uday Narayan Singh to share his invaluable insights on this fascinating topic. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you, Sumit. I would request somebody to upload my presentation because from my screen there is some problem in uploading
Sure.
the
Sure, sir.
presentation.
Naveen, can you do that?
I do.
Okay. So Naveen is uploading that.
Okay. Uh, I hope you can hear me clearly and you can also see the PPT here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the occasion of Bharatiya Bhasha Divas, I was talking to myself, what kind of writing do we have in future? What is the future of our writing? And both these questions are very relevant. Um, if you can think about this, then perhaps we will find out some answers to this question as to what exactly might happen. Can you go to the next screen, please? Next slide. I begin with an imaginary dialogue. No, earlier slide. Begin with an imaginary dialogue. Uh, the dialogue is about readership and market of these things. Uh, Question is, a lot of authors have this complaint that there are no readers. A lot of readers can also complain that there are not such writers who are interesting enough to read. Some people raise this issue of who has time to read. Very few people have time to read. Um, Someone may try to sneak in and say in a very weak voice. Earlier readers tried finding out in writing what they did not find in the classroom or in the family. So if there is no laughter in the family, if there is no fun in the family, then they find out that kind of laughter and fun in the writing and take a great pleasure in that. But they say that we don't depend on literature anymore. We have many other ways. It could be Facebook, it could be WhatsApp, it could be Instagram, it could be X, it could be films, it could be television, it could be serials, it could be online platform. There are many other ways of finding what we do not find in our own life and our own family. the whole giant industries who have come forward in the art scene, in the science of finding, and even in the science of finding. If you ask even a radiwala on the street, they'll say, "Jara Google में देख लो ना, Google कर लो ना." So it's a huge giant industry which has come in the aid of common man. And now with that Google, you have Gemini, you have Chat GPT, you have so many other devices to help you out. So in a way, for some people would say that literature has become a luxury now. It's a luxury item that is no more needed by the common man. Uh, Earlier, they had only imaginary authors, or they had only imagined authors, and they would chase those authors. In fact, I remember many of those people were so enamored by the authors that they will chase the authors, and they will try to learn what is the new thing that the author is writing. But now, no more. So, can we assign some new task to literature? Maybe literature does not have to find and discover what is now not known, but it can still be of great help to readers. It can dig out, it can stain, it can do so many things with words, it can do sorting with words. Can you go to the next slide?
Next slide.
The writing, as you know, the demand and supply of it depended earlier on the notion of need. What do you need? The question was what we need. Now, need has been the driving force for writing earlier on the nature of economic and connection and supply and demand chain. Good writing, good piece of theater, grand theater, very soothing music, great piece of art. These were all needs of our life. Just as good food was need. But 20th century saw grand collapses, bloody wars, and many betrayals. And in addition to that, we also saw industrial revolution. Go to the next slide, please. So now there is a clash between the age of want and the age of need. So there's a want versus need. As you can realize now, there's a whole industry, Amazon, Flipkart, entire industry which has come up, where the economic driver is need, the economic driver is want. What do you want? They will ask, what do you want? So whether you need something or not, but you want it. You have a car, you don't need another car, but you want it. So that's the kind of situation that we are now in. The publishers would now be looking for expansion of their market base particularly, by identifying the potential buyers who will buy in bulk. Now, these targets are very important for them. They must have hunches for this market. And this has made many big-time publishers unusable, unsold people, whereas many small-time people become useful now. So, can we go to the next slide, please? Now, where are the gaps now? If you look at the adjective of the right kind, you would find that there is a gap of everything in everything. The biggest challenge is what is the right quote for a moment? Now I have to speak, I have to give a talk. So what should I quote? Whom should I quote? And what kind of quotation should I use? I have to go to a particular place. So I must have a map which will tell me how to go, right direction. So there is a whole industry for right direction. What is the right step in career? There's a whole industry giving you career advice. They are also giving you the advice where to put your money, right? Business advice, trade and commerce advice. So, right adjective, right expression, for that also there is an industry. So, many of our students, if you ask them to write something, they will take help of the AI devices and find out what should be the right expression for this thing. Because there is always a demand that I want to write like Shakespeare, but I want to have a touch of Milton in it. And I want to also, I won't mind having some Gorky and Tolstoy mixed into it. So the devices of today will actually fill those gaps for you and will find out how to actually make use of that. So the assignment of the common authors employed by the newspaper houses or movie moguls in earlier days was to find out what does the common man lack. So common men lack a lot of things: success, money, romance, opulence, uh, unholy unknown connections and networks. So your films of 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, if you just look at our Bollywood films, they will show you that whatever common man lacked in life, they were filling it up. So Halim Javed, one after the other hit. Manmohan Desai, one after the other hit. It's all because they were the people who knew the formula of what how to find out what common man lacks in life. So pulp fictions actually did very well at that time. Bestsellers thrived. So if you look at this, you will find that there are many mantras of marketing oneself. And Chetan Bhagat gives us five mantras here. One is publish and do your own publicity. There is no such thing as bad publicity. Even if you are even if you are caught doing something which is unholy, which is obscene, you get a publicity. And as long as you get a publicity, there's nothing like bad publicity. This is what Chetan Bhagat's style. Also says that if you are self-promoting, some people will say, oh, you should not really promote yourself. Let somebody else talk about you. Chetan Bhagat will say that there is nothing wrong in promoting shamelessly yourself. Nobody cares if revenue comes from shameless self-promotion. Then you must have followers, right? In Instagram, in Facebook. So you must have 5,000 followers on Facebook. You must have million followers in X or Twitter. So create your own followers. Then tailor your own products and communicate to your audience. What do you have in offer? Oh, you have this problem. I have a solution for you. Oh, you have a mental health issue, depression. Yes, I have something for you. So that's the issue. And then he says the fifth mantra is go for the low hanging fruit. Grab the easy to acquire customers first, then other customers will fall in. Can you go to the next slide? So, what are the challenges then? With the introduction of e-zine and next slide, Palja. With the introduction of e-zine and many kinds of storytelling platforms, different kind of devices, writing has assumed a challenge that is unprecedented now. Now, please remember that when you have a news breaking out, what do the news column people or newspaper people tell you? What is the story? So, nobody talks about what is the news. क्या खबर है? नहीं. आज का मामला क्या है? आज का इशू क्या है? आज का स्टोरी क्या है? आज की सबसे बड़ी खबर, सनसनी तेज खबर. So all these things, market segmentation, if you look at it, the algorithm that they may have, you will notice that there are many, many game-changing things that are happening in the 21st century posing these challenges. And what is happening with whole world, literacy figure has risen. So there is also a demand for suitable material. What suits you may not suit somebody else. What suits somebody else, you may find, oh, that's trash. So that depends. Different people will make different kind of demands. And very interestingly, one of the thinkers like Scott Brecker, in a blog titled 3 Pound Brain, says that the old rainforests of culture have been cleared away. Now, literature, with its prehensile hands and brachiating arms, reaches for heights it can no longer climb and stares into distances it can no longer see. If you look at any one of the films, because you're all foreign language lovers, if you looked at any one of the films by Christopher Nolan, you will remember that he's trying to reach through films such uh, worlds, such stories which have not been imagined before. And all these, suppliers of our huge industries supplying things to you, ideas, reading, etc., to you, have an added button. You might also like. So if you have clicked for a particular book by Chetan Bhagat, they will say they will add something else by Jhumpa Lahiri and say you might also like this. So it's a feature you might also like. Like Facebook has make your friends. If you have less number of friends, they will give you more friends option to cover. Can you go to the next slide, Parijat? Issue is then who communicates with whom. No,
Sir, sorry to interrupt, but slide is not being changed. Pariza, are you changing the slides?
uh, Parijat has gone to algorithm of selling and buying. No, I am in the earlier slide. Who communicates with whom? Yeah. Now you have a reader and you have an author on exactly opposite side. In the middle, you have the media. So media is the one which controls the expression, the discourse, the market, the interpretation, how exactly to view the story, etc., everything. So the author may have conceived a story which the author is trying to express. Media will tweak it a little, you know, distort it a little, interpret it in a certain way, depending on which media you are talking about, whether it's Godi media or the media which is favoring the government or media which is foreign media, depends on whatever media you're talking about. And then that is how the reader is getting the info. So that's the way it works these days. So original speakers in this communication are in the matrix are the authors who revel in the possibility of less than stable connection between senders and receiver. So that's the situation. Can we go to the next slide, please? The algorithm of buying and selling. The buyers, receivers then often depend on the book ads. So what's happening? If you pick up a book in the airport or in this railway station or in the shop, you will find that there are backside of the book which has full of people talking about it, two liners, three liners, praising the book ads, favorable reviews, and these favorable reviews are quite often engineered, doctored. You don't think everybody is going to favor the review. No, they actually have a mechanism of contacting people who matter, who have a lot of followers in the Twitter or in Facebook or in Instagram, and they get a few lines from them to settle that. The supplier publisher are always in collusion with the magazines. Like the filmmakers are in collusion with Cine Plus and Cinema Today and Filmfare and all those magazines, which will offer a very favorable review to some stupid film. And then a lot of people will go to the hall to see the film. So people have a lot of manipulations are going on in marketing these products or the writing or literature these days. And then there will be a quotable quote in the Guardian or Times Literary Supplement, which means that you have now reached the mecca of writing. So that's the issue here. Can we go to the next slide, please? So writing has then become a manipulation. Literature is manipulation. Now, you might say, sir, this is very dangerous. If literature is manipulation, how can we survive? What can we do? Oh, you think this is something new? No, it is not something new. It has been happening for a few thousand years. Literature is manipulation. With the ancient times, you remember there were 13 Chandidasa, there were 3 Vidyapati, and even Tagore himself hid himself, his identity, and wrote like somebody else, Bhanusimha. So this is not uncommon. In India, this has been a very, very common activity that you write like somebody else. You want to become famous, you want your lines to be remembered by people, so you write those lines in the name of somebody else. So ghostwriting has been a very common thing in India. Look at other thing. In India, there has been a dichotomy of Kriti and Smriti. What is that dichotomy? That Kriti is lead to people to shun dependence on their memory. Memory is Smriti. So can you recall something from memory? Yes, that is Smriti. Kriti is something which you have not seen, have not imagined, have not witnessed, but you are creating yourself. That kind of event, that kind of dialogue, that kind of scenario, that kind of relationship. We had another, dichotomy, Shruti and Smriti. What is Shruti? Whatever was heard is Shruti. A number of Sanskrit texts, which are basically revelations, whether it is Veda or Upanishad, this is what is heard. It's a Shruti. And Smriti is what? What you can actually, talk about from memory or from tradition, from folklore, from various folk stories, narratives, etc. etc. A similar kind of dichotomy exists in Tibetan, Kanjur and Tanjur. So you look at it, if you think that writing and manipulation is something new, no, it is not new. This is there in ancient Tibet, this is there in ancient India, this is there in ancient Greece, Rome, everywhere. If you look at Antigone, on which I have now retold the story in Maithili, Antigone has been retold in Italian, in French, in German. Every one of them has retold the story of Antigone in its own way. So it's not something which is not done. Even in Bengali, 2 different interpretations exist: Shambhumitra's interpretation and Rudra Prathal's interpretation. Can we go to the next slide, please? In fact, Ramesh Chandra Dutt, when he talked about the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, he said that there is a lot of manipulation, lot of interpolation in the Ramayana text, in the Mahabharata text, because actual war has ended with the funeral of the deceased. What is there to talk about more in Ramayana? But they have Bhishma lying on the platform to be burnt, and Bhishma is now giving lot of jnana. What is the jnana that Bhishma is giving? Bhishma is saying, he's repeating the discourse of all saints. That this is what Bhrigu had said, this is what Bharadwaja had said, this is what Yagya, Vyas, Shuka has said. He explains Sankhya philosophy, Yoga philosophy, everything else. Now, that's not there in Mahabharata. In the original Mahabharata, you don't find it. You find it in the later manipulations of Mahabharata. So there are very interesting thing that is happening. Go to the next slide, please. Can literature therefore be thought about reverberation, where you feel, oh, this author is speaking about myself. I have been thinking about it. I have been thinking of telling the story like this. So there is so much of resemblance and familiarity with your own life experience that you feel as if this is actually echoing your voice. Some author is echoing your voice. So you like that particular poet or an author because you feel as if that particular poet and author is speaking like you would do. Next slide. So actually, it is known versus unknown. given versus new. This is the kind of dichotomy that is working here. We can often smell a story before it is fully revealed. So, what is the trick in future for writers in future? The trick is if you are smelt a story, then I turn the story from there to another direction so that I shock you, move into the opposite direction. It is so shocking that it will open a new vista for you. Oh, I never thought about this. It's like going through a road and reaching a particular place on a crossing, and you know how what happens if you turn right, if you turn left, but you never know, because you've never been to what happens if you go straight or take slightly tangential turn after you go straight. Now the literature is taking you to those alleys and those bylanes, from familiar plane to completely unfamiliar plane. And that is what actually has been shown in this picture here, that you are being taken from a familiar plane to completely unfamiliar plane. That is the new literature that is emerging now. When you go to the next slide. So it's a new kind of aesthetics that is happening. New painting, new dress design, new films, new television serials, new music, everything. So you have uh, Sujalang, Sufalang, Shasya Shamalang, Bande Mataram. No, now you have Bande Mataram by A.R. Rahman. Okay, so there will be new experiments all the time happening here. So you need a new aesthetics to be able to analyze and understand that. So to that extent, I think we can go back to a British philosopher called Bernard Bosanquet. He actually is a philosopher and an art theoretician who is known for his work on logic, poetry, religion, and metaphysics. Just imagine the combination. So about 100 years ago, he emerged into the British scenario, and he's does indicate that he's indebted to Hegel, to Romantic poets, to Lodge, to everybody. But then he says that he rejected all emphasis of emotion over reason. That he thinks that you can't really emphasize on emotion so much. Reason is also withdrawn. Now, you might ask me, sir, give us an example of reason which has succeeded. Look at Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. If you look at Oppenheimer, for instance, the film, you will find no tension, no murder, no mystery to be resolved. It's only 3 hours of solid conspiracy and discovery and journey of a particular individual and the whole group of individuals into making of the bomb and putting it on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. But that film, which everybody thought is bomb in the box office, which actually succeeded. Oppenheimer has become a world phenomena in the film history. If you once this came, so actually there is a lot of interesting idea that's happening, that sometimes reason can also be played and can become a very interesting work, uh, not just basing your literature on emotion. And Bosanquet thinks that there is a spiritual element of the world, and that is something which the artists are trying to discover. They're trying to reach there somewhere. Can art be a synthesis of content and expression? This is the kind of question he's raising. Can you go to the next slide? So he's talking about reconciliation. Look at this picture. This picture is very crucial. What's happening in this picture? Bosanquet had translated Hegel's philosophy of fine art and then went on to write his own history of aesthetic. Both these believe that aesthetics can bring in reconciliation between natural and supernatural world. Now you will find, now those of you who have not seen Tagore's paintings would do well to see his anthropomorphic painting. He had very interesting geometric painting, and very interesting anthropomorphic painting. That is, he will take a particular animal, he will elongate the nose or the ears or the eyes or the face, and he will make the changes and he will try to say something with that. So, this is very crucial, very interesting. So, this is a mind boggling situation. The popularity of Bosanquet's views declined after Bertrand Russell and Moore despised him. But I think this is very crucial that that you must look at this kind of a reconciliation. Next slide. There has been a recent article, recent essay, Literature of the Future, Future of Literature. It's 2016, where MB Zid talks about these issues, but he does not touch upon any one of the points that I have mentioned so far. In fact, his idea is something else. First of all, he quotes many people like Alvin Kernan, he quotes Ellis, he quotes Guerlin, who all talk about the death of literature, literature lost, autopsy of literature, and things like that in a very kind of mundane situation that as if literature is at the deathbed or it is already dead or it is at least in intensive care. It needs to be, treated properly. It needs to be completely changed altogether. The question is, if this is the situation, is it because of irrelevance of the old form? Partly true. Like, I give you an example. When Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay wrote his first novel, Durgesh Nandini, it was printed and it was sent to all the great scholars of those days in Bengal. They tried to read it like they would read any Padavali, any poem, rhyming poem. And they said, my God, this does not rhyme. So what is this? Throw it away. Durgesh Nandini, Kapal Kundala, they were throwing it away, burning the books. They said this is useless thing completely. Because old style of literature is rhyming Padavalis of Vidyapati of medieval ages. And this was fiction, prose, completely different, defying the techniques of poetry or great writing. So that's the problem. So there is this failure of nerve, failure of imagination that can happen. Market quite often tempt you to write something which is pulpy, which is very sensational. If you're not responding to market in that particular manner, market will say, oh, reject it. It's very esoteric. Don't print this kind of writing. So Zaid argues the literature people should not adjust, should not tailor the needs of the new information age. There could be new age things like ebook, Kindle, stories on X, Insta poetry on Instagram. But these methods, literature need not respond, is what his point was. The consensus was that future of literature lies in the fact that it should have a literary world of its own without caring for money, city, machine, mission, calculation, and cold logic. Now, as you all know, it cannot happen because literature is the one which inspires you to act in a certain way, to speak in a meeting, political meeting in a certain manner, to make a film in a particular manner, to write a musical score in a particular manner. So there are futuristic fictions which must be thought about. Let me give you one example. Go to the next slide. Some of you may have seen this film or read this book called Delirium. Imagine a time when love is a disease, the deadlier pandemic than COVID 19, for which we must find a cure. And in Oliver's dystopic fiction Delirium, this is exactly what happens in an alternative United States. The country is called Alternative United States. The borders are closed to all outsiders, nobody can enter. Nobody can get out. Approved cities, whichever is approved, they are all walled. One cannot go from one city to another city. Like we were not allowed to go from Gurgaon to Delhi. And love must be prevented at any cost. In this entire fiction is about how to prevent love. So the doctors have claimed that they found a cure because they need to operate very early enough on all those young boys and girls who are reaching adulthood. That brain surgery will prevent them from feeling love or falling in love. And it's not, mind you, not an optional surgery, it's a compulsory surgery. So then US president declares, somebody like Donald Trump, that everyone must be cured because powerful desires such as love is very dangerous. It will prompt the citizens to engage in emotional, you know, out, you know, action and violent behavior. So somehow or the other, you must contain this. Next slide. But the protagonist of the story, Lena, falls in love. It fails. The whole thing fails. She is not cured. Even after operation, she is not cured. How do we know? Because she actually falls in love with Alex, an invalid person who lives outside the city walls. And then she feels that if she can fall in love really with somebody outside the walls, then she must dig her past. What's wrong with her past? So she starts digging the past. The whole fiction is about digging the past. And then they found out that that's how they actually, where exactly entire childhood was a lie. Go to the next slide, please. What are the other options people are following? One option everybody is following, you might have seen these days, is translanguaging. I don't know if you know this term. Translanguaging is mixing languages. I'm writing a fiction in Spanish, but I'm not writing in Spanish alone. I'm mixing Spanish with Russian, with French, with German, and then I'm writing in Spanish. It's my friend who published my Gitanjali book from Andorra. And Andorra, as you know, is a very peculiar place where it is for 6 months ruled by France and 6 months ruled by Spanish. She was a German national who actually grew with Spanish in the school, and she's a great poet of French actually. So you can easily see that there are many people like that in Europe too these days who are writing in several languages at the same time. So there is enhanced authenticity, enhanced because if you look at the international scenario these days, go to any big city, you will find numerous languages being spoken all around you. And this is not something which is uncommon. And it mirrors the fluid identities of the individuals. One moment you are speaking in Quechua, the next moment you're speaking in perfect Spanish, the third moment you are questioning somebody in English. So that's a very common thing. This also challenges the monolingual norm. We have a lot of fixed ideas that this is a great play. Which language? Somebody will ask. Somebody will say, no, no, it's a Greek play. But it is always possible that there is a play which is neither Greek, nor Latin, nor Korean, nor Spanish. And it can always be in situations like Japanese, where you have somebody like Akira Kurosawa picking up English or Shakespeare and making it into Rashomon in completely Japanese. Power dynamics of author and others keep changing. So translanguaging fictions are common these days. Where? You might ask, sir, where do we find that? Go to the next slide. You find it everywhere in the world. In Americas, you have Sandra Sinceros, you have Gloria Anzaldúa, you have Juno Diaz, you have Luis Alberto Ure, you have Julia Alvarez. All of them are actually translanguaging authors. In Europe, you have Zedel Smith, Salman Rushdie, Hanif Qureshi. In Africa, Chinua Achebe, Thiongo, Bulawalo, all of them are doing this translanguaging. They're mixing so many languages. In Asia, you have Amy Tan, Kazuo Ishiguro, Jhumpa Lahiri, Keri Hulme, all of them are doing this. So it is not something uncommon. It has become a future trend, futuristic trend. So you can easily see where the literature is going these days. Go to the next slide, please. And I think that's the last slide. Actually, if you think about it, what are the other options that are happening now? People are using sociolects. There's overuse of slangs. Anybody who has seen Harbert, the film by Shuman Mukhopadhyay, which is the national award winning film, इतनी गालियां हमने कहीं नहीं सुनी है. Imagine the kind of galis, the choicest of abuses. The film is full of that, cuss words. But it is fantastic. Because the person who wrote it is Nabarun Bhattacharya. Nabarun, as you know, is son of Mahashweta Devi. Mahashweta Devi herself, celebrated author, got the Academy Award, and Nabarun also got the Academy Award for the same book, Harvard, because which is full of cuss words. So you can imagine the way literature is changing these days. Use of pigeons, creoles, completely anthropomorphized characters, imaginary entities, supernaturals, surrealistic contexts, minuscule texts, insta text. Minuscule text, how? These days, if you go to Paris, travel from one station to the other station, you have 4 minutes for the train to come. So what happens? You put a coin inside a box and a story rolls out of that box. You take the story, you read, you need only 3 minutes or 4 minutes to read the story. So all 4 minute stories are fed into the boxes on all stations in Paris. Is it not a wonderful thing that's happening there? Similarly, if you look at the great Indian poets today, some of them like Rupi Kaur, so famous on Insta poetry. Just type Rupi Kaur Insta poetry. You will find fantastic poetry by her, where she also does her own painting and designing. Okay, so this is what is happening. So there is slang, there is supernatural, there is imagination, anthropomorphization, there is pidgin, creole, and sociolects. Literature of the future and future of literature. This is how we are thinking of changing the future altogether. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, comments, I'm open. I hope I have not bored you and I have not taken much of your time.
No, no, not at all, sir. It was, such an enlightening session for all of us. And now I request everyone, if the session is open for discussions. I mean, if anyone would like to ask or discuss anything, you're welcome.
So we'll start with Aniket, right? Aniket is always ready with all questions.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Am I audible?
You're absolutely audible.
Okay, so thank you very much for the insightful presentation. And the moment I read the topic of the talk, I was reminded of Brecht. So during the Nazi time, he wrote a poem in exile, which goes like, and which is widely translated in Indian context in Hindi. क्या जुल्मतों के दौर में भी गीत गाए जाएंगे? हाँ, जुल्मतों के दौर के ही गीत गाए जाएंगे. Will there be song in the time of distress? Yes, there will be songs of time of distress. And I think that particular poem from Brecht sums up the